evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with not my normal partner in crime. Tonight, I am joined by that franchise guy. You know him from his fantastic YouTube channel, Mr. Marcus Whitman. Marcus, how we doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Greg. You know, we were talking before the show. It's a sprint, not a marathon at this point, getting ready for the draft. I still have a whole position group that I gotta, get through the offensive linemen and grind the tape. So happy we definitely happy we had time to squeeze this in the grind here, because it's been a long time coming to get together with you and talk some ball. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. We played around here trying to find the right times. We've been seeing each other at, the Senior Bowl and the Combine in different places for years, and finally had a good chance to get you on here and go through there. For anybody who hasn't checked it out, we'll put the link in the show description here. Marcus's channel is fantastic, really, really good content, and all kinds of good stuff. And no better time to have you on here, as obviously you do a lot of stuff across the league, looking at a lot of different teams and a lot of different work. So I always think it's helpful for Bills fans. They hear a lot from me and Aaron and Eric and Anthony, and we're obviously very clued in and feel confident in what we see as the team's needs and the right fits and things like that. But we get surprised plenty, and we think things. So I think when I see other people who we know do lots of work from a film standpoint, have a good overall perspective on the league and teams, I like to kind of have other voices in to be able to help. What do you see as the needs for the team, and what do you see as players that you could see as a fit to go through there? So I think that's the best way to start out the show tonight. First off, the Bills signed Trey White earlier tonight, so I assume that means cornerback is now completely off the table for the Bills.
Yeah, just scratch him off the board. Burn the evals. We're good. He's going to be healthy. He's going to go back to all-pro form, and you got nothing to worry about. Get him a contract extension mid-season, frankly.
Obviously. So I will say, I think if a hopeful Bills fan listening to this, if you want to cling to something, I think some of the later season clips with the Ravens, maybe a little further out from the injury recovery, was certainly better than the Rams film early on, which was, honestly pretty rough. But that still wasn't anywhere close to the former all-pro player that Trey White was with the Bills, even in those clips with the Ravens later on. We are another year out. He's very familiar with the system. He's obviously a beloved figure. Like Sean McDermott, almost cried when they was talking about releasing him before when they let him go, and they understood the business of the league. I would say if there's a Bills fan looking for a little more meaning to it, I think it's most likely that it has almost no impact on the draft. One path I kicked around with a couple people is, maybe if they see that they're really, really high on a Siobhan Revel or a Morrison, and they think that if we have Dane Jackson and Trey White, that gives us that Band-Aid for the first maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks as we let those guys recover, and we see them as the long-term fit and maybe even the end of season fit as a starter opposite Christian Benford. Maybe I could see that being some connection here, is that they know they're higher on those guys, or comfortable taking them at 30, or, moving up from 56 or 62 to get one of those guys. Maybe that's something. That's the closest I could get to any actual meaning here. But for me, it certainly doesn't take corner off as a priority for me. Did you, when you were coming in, probably, I know you joked online that all your show notes are out the window now.
Yeah.
I assume that's because you had cornerback prominently on the list.
Cornerback is pretty high on the list. Yeah, no, I think that's a good take though. That it would give you a little bit more flexibility, because the's
admittedly guys we already liked already, guys that we saw the fit for, but it was maybe a little bit harder to know, hey, are they going to take not a layaway plan? This isn't a full, I'm thinking of a Ojabo or why am I drawing a blank on the USC lineman the Ravens stashed 2 years ago?
Voorhees.
Yeah, Voorhees. It's not literally a layaway plan, redshirt year. Mm-hmm. I think both those guys are very likely to play this season, but maybe not week 1. So they're players that we already liked, but all right, maybe that's a slight notch up that ladder.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of extra wiggle room. I'm picturing it like, okay, that Dane Jackson was just a 1-layer Band-Aid, and now they've made a full cross with the other Band-Aid is coming back the other way. So it's like, it's a very thin cornerback class, in my opinion. So you never know how the board's going to fall, and it just gives you a little bit of a extra buffer. Get you a CB2 for a few extra games, maybe.
So this will probably come up when we do the mock draft here in a little bit, but I know a lot of guys, when you get, past Noel Williams or Zy Alexander or something like that, early fourth-ish, all of a sudden it gets tough to find names that you like. Is that, I don't know if that's the exact tier, but is that the range where you start to see it dropping off?
Yeah, maybe even steeper than that, frankly. Definitely, I like Noel. Zy was 6th round to a priority free agent grade for me. I wasn't a huge fan of him.
Just for Bills fans yelling into the their speaker right now, he's super Billsy in the likes to tackle, long arms, not a good athlete, and
Sure.
that's what we do over and over again, is finding these guys who are like really mediocre athletes, but like check all the other boxes, and we coach them up to play good, which admittedly Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson far outplayed their 6th, 7th UDFA range to be functional NFL starters. But I wouldn't mind, it's okay to take an athlete here or there. It's all right.
Yeah.
You're allowed
to. No, totally. I don't know if you want me to jump the gun on the, my favorite players for them right now.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Let's stick a cornerback for a little bit here, since we already kind of opened that can.
Yeah. So there is one name though, kind of in that range, that I know is some of the Bills fans I've interacted with. Definitely the radar has been, he's shown up on the radar for the Bills, and that's Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech. Definitely fits the not an elite category type of athlete, but compared to a Zy who ran a 4.56, I think you're crossing the threshold a little bit more with 4.5 speed. Not to obsess about 40 time, of course, but at this position, I do put a lot of stock in that, and I think Dorian Strong at least has a good baseline where he's not constantly getting beat over the top, and has a little bit more recovery speed and stuff when he is out of position. So really like him. But yeah, 6'1", I think he plays a little stronger than 185, where he's, a little bit thinner, but I think he plays, pun unintended, but he plays stronger. Dorian Strong at 185 pounds, but really smart off zone guy that would fit perfectly for the Bills. And I got a listener that is involved with the Virginia Tech program, and he was saying that the Bills sent their secondary coach to Virginia Tech's pro day. So definitely someone for me. He cracked my top 10 cornerback list with a 3rd to a 4th round grade, and he's kind of one of my calls as a mid-round draft pick that could very likely end up a Bill. So he would be way at the top of my list for a mid-round target for them.
Yeah, that he makes a lot of sense. I think I always use the consensus boards that kind of aggregate together everybody's board, so I don't get too anchored to one person. And the aggregate consensus boards have him at 106, with some people as high as 86. So the Bills pick at 109. They have a pick at 62. A lot of people want them to. We also have, we have 2/4, 3/5. 6. We have so many day 3 picks. A lot of people want to see them move up a little from 109 with some of that ammo. He'd be the perfect guy to target in that kind of range, or if he's still there at 109 or 132, that's a steal.
Yeah. I mean, other than him though, if you are talking about that mid-round range, I don't have a lot of great names. I think Noel Williams would probably be the only other guy, honestly. This cornerback class really did stand out as particularly thin for me, but that is a reason why
a lot of Bills fans want, whether it's Rebel, Amos, Zary Thomas, Morrison, Porter, they want one of those guys up higher, whether it's, and we'll see what your next position is, but a lot of people have 2 positions kind of separating themselves, and one at 30, the other at 56, or if that one's at 30, the other one's at 56, and even maybe moving up from 56 to snag, because both, corner and interior D-line is most people's list. Again, drops off once you get past some of those top names, and once you miss that tier, now all of a sudden it's a little bit tougher to find. So is there anybody in that, obviously we're going to be out of the range of Hunter Johnson Barron. If somehow Jahdae Barron started to fall into a range where it was doable, that would be exciting. But, assuming those guys are out of play, now you hit another cluster, and it's mostly 4, some people have 5. How do you sort Hairston, Revel Jr., Amos, Thomas, and Morrison? Where do those guys slot for you when you get into that tier that we could grab at 30 or move up from 56 to grab?
Yeah, definitely it's those 4. I'm kind of in line with consensus on those guys. Do you want it kind of at large or more specifically for the Bills?
I mean,
if you see that differently.
Yeah, go ahead for what you see as maybe the better fit for the Bills.
Yeah, so Bills wise, Amos would go number 1 for me because I think his off zone anticipation is incredible, and that's obviously a McDermott fit. But he can run man coverage too. Like if you want to go in your back pocket and do, you want to blitz, you want to play press man, which it's nice to have that versatility.
You need the tool in the tool belt.
Yes, exactly. So for me, Amos is he would slot behind Ravel for like my overall rankings. Amos 4th and Ravel 3rd, actually, because I'm lower on Jahdae Barron. But for the Bills, I would put Amos 1 and then Morrison probably 2. Obviously, huge questions with Morrison out of Notre Dame with the hip injury. So it's just like, we don't know in our tiny studio, content creator rooms what that hip looks like. We can only speculate. But if he's healthy, he's like the perfect Bills corner, man. The way he can move out in space and jump routes, but again, has the ability to go man coverage. Got to learn to tackle a little bit better. The Bills always pride themselves on tacklers in the secondary, so hopefully the culture can kind of get that out of him maybe a little bit more.
And,
but
I mean, Trey White had literally an all-pro season, and he never found a tackle that he liked his entire career. So, he was always like those thinner wide receivers who are willing blockers. Like they'll get in the way and do enough. Like Trey would throw his body around when he needed to, but he was never like sticking his face in the fan. Like he was never going to be that guy. So you need a willingness to make tackles. There are guys, the ones that set off red flags are when you have the real high missed tackle rate and stuff like that, where there's not even a willingness. Like you don't need to be out there, crushing guys in the flat and sniffing out screens, blowing dudes up, but you got to like get in the way. And when it comes your way, you got to get the guy down. Like you got to be able to be willing in that space. So there is a threshold, but it's not maybe quite as high as people think, but there is a threshold. Like there are guys who for sure, like a lot of Bills fans have been clamoring for Asante Samuel Jr. because he's available. And I love all of the pieces except for the tackling. Like I would be shocked if he would pass that threshold for the Bills.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I loved Asante, and I was like, oh, he'll learn how to tackle. It'll be fine. And then Harbaugh's like, we can't do this anymore.
yeah. And that is, I mean, obviously there are differences with McDermott and Harbaugh, but like that, like football guy mentality, lot of similarities with those guys and who they like. All right. So now, what did you have? Did you have a position above corner or was that your number 1? And what was your next position in need for the Bills?
I did put D-line just in general. Number 1, specifically like trying to find an actual difference maker on the D-line. They have so many guys that it's like, they can play, they can win a rep here and there. But like when you get to January and you're trying to win these playoff games, you want somebody you can actually hang your hat on that's going to take over a game late. And they just, even like Gregory Rousseau isn't that guy. He's a really solid, steady player. But for me, it's like D-line and specifically some of these like higher risk gamble type of guys that you might whiff on them, but they need more of these potential difference makers. And in a deep defensive line class for the Bills, who are typically picking last 4 picks of the draft, it's harder to find those guys. But in this specific draft class, they have some options here. So the names of some of these guys, both interior and on the edge, I don't care where it comes from, but there's options in both the interior and the edge group. Kenneth Grant is a name that he's maybe the pipe dream, but I wouldn't rule it out that he's there or within a striking range of a trade up.
Same
potential.
comment I made on Barron. It's if all of a sudden one of those guys starts in the low 20s and now it's doable to get up there without sacrificing a ton, I think he's absolutely right up there and a guy that they would sacrifice a little bit. And again, the luxury of having the most draft capital of any playoff team. Now you have 10 picks. They don't have 10 roster spots. There's no possibility they have 10 roster spots. You have the luxury to play around a little bit. And, I know the analytical math is you shouldn't trade up for things, but when you're in that spot with fewer roster spots than draft picks, you have that luxury to go get your guy if he starts to fall.
Yeah, and like I said, you're looking for the difference maker. So whoever, if you got to be aggressive to go get it. But I think Grant, like, all the flashes are there. It's just putting it all together. You wish he would rush with power more often, but you do see him flash the power. And then if you can kind of make the power the fastball and then have the swim moves and the finesse stuff that he does on top of that, that's when you're getting into like someone that can really impact the game on pass rushing downs down the road maybe. But, even like second round, if you did go corner first round, guys like a David Walker comes to mind where it's like, I really like David Walker. He's a top 50 player for me. Dominant tape, 6 foot, 260 pounds, took over at the Senior Bowl coming out of Central Arkansas. So he had those kind of level of competition concerns, but he's someone that the only question with him is just, does his play style and the level of competition make the jump? Because there's really not like any technique or physical trait deficiencies, but at 6 foot, 260 pounds, he comes in like super low, rips through your hip. He's got a bull rush at that leverage point. He can get up and under your pads, unblockable at Central Arkansas. And just reminds me of like Olivier Vernon and Brandon Graham, who are that similar build. And it's like, yeah, the level of competition is a little scary. He's older as a prospect, but if it translates, you put him in as a second round guy and it's like, okay, this is a player that we can have just consistently get after the quarterback on a third down where we have to have it. So he comes to mind. Even Landon Jackson out of Arkansas in the second round for me is someone I have mocked in second rounds for them. You're probably not getting too much from him in year one, but he, to me, in a normal edge class, because this is not a normal edge class, there's like 10, 11 guys in the top 50. In a normal edge class, he'd probably be sneaking into like late first round conversations in the way that like Shamar Stewart and Michael Williams are. I think he's just kind of getting pushed down the board a little bit. So it's just kind of like an extra dart throw at a freaky mover at 6'6" that has won with a little bit of everything. He's just trying to package together how he wins a little more consistently. So I guess, those would be 3 names. And then one other guy that I wouldn't be stunned actually if he's there in the first is Donovan Ezeiruaku. I think the league might be a little bit lower on him. The media loves him. I have him as more of a late first, early second round guy. It's going to be, a crapshoot whether he's there or not, but he's someone that definitely can like end drives for you too with his bend and his pass rushing ability. So that'd be another name.
So where did you end up on 2 of the other defensive linemen we hear around there a lot with Walter Nolen and Derrick Harmon? Are they guys that you think will be gone earlier, or are they guys that you were lower on and didn't bring up because you didn't think they'd be fit?
I didn't bring them up because I don't think they'll be there.
Okay, I agree. Sadly, I agree. Sadly, but that's reassuring to know that I'll just be sad when I watch them go like 16th and 19th or whatever.
Yeah, Harmon is possible. Harmon's your pipe dream. I would be very surprised if Nolen is there.
Yeah. Honestly, Nolen to me has a ton of Ed Oliver to him, like the crazy athleticism but not the biggest guy, but like is stronger than the measurables tell you. Like he holds up and plays stronger than that, but just crazy athleticism for like the freaky stuff. And then I hate it, but Derrick Harmon, every time I watch, like I see flashes of Chris Jones where it's like that big grizzly bear build that like, how are you moving so fluidly like that? But there's no fat. You're just big, thick dude that because those plays where you see Chris Jones bust through the line and he's throwing around other 320-pound guys like they're just like a thing in his way. And it's just like you see that. And like, again, not consistent, just like Jones wasn't when he was coming out. And I'm not saying Harmon will reach those heights, but like the plays where there's like the flashes, it's just like he's throwing other enormous Division I athletes out of his way, like they're just like a dummy in his way. It's freaky, dude. He's so powerful.
I had similar notes where it's like, it's not like he necessarily has a go-to move, but he's just really good with his hands and has like excellent contact balance as a rusher. So like, absolutely. Another guy that's like a fun dart throw, third, fourth round would be Deone Walker, who has a couple of reps like that too.
Who was it? Eric Turner, our founder and my partner in crime here, said that he's Jordan Phillips 2.0. Like, it's a guy who looks like a 1-tech, but is actually a 3-tech. And when his reps are good, he just throws dudes out of the way and sacks the quarterback, or uses the center or guard to sack the quarterback, but also goes fishing for those and gets washed out more often than he makes the big play. But the big plays are really fun.
Yep. Jamaree Caldwell is another guy in this class that's just like that. Crazy, crazy get off and power to uncoil for a 330-pound guy. He's the one I actually had the Jordan Phillips comp on.
My pipe dream is we double dip and just reconnect the Oregon defensive line. Like, just give me both those guys. Give me like Harmon somehow makes it the 30. Give me Caldwell with the Bears 4th rounder at 109. And I'll walk away with that, and we'll just restart the Oregon defensive tackle group. And I'll figure out probably a corner and a defensive end with 56 and 62. So you're completely aligned with where our staff is. I think you can debate the order. Some people will throw, if the right wide receiver or safety is there, those are needs enough that people won't lose it if they're one of those first 3 picks. But I think most people want to see some like best player available order of D tackle, corner, D end. And like, it could be any 3 of those and people will be pretty good. And again, if Malaki Starks or some awesome player is there, or Matthew Goldie, whatever, if some awesome player falls and it's at a reasonable position of need, nobody's going to be upset to get an amazing talent at a near position of need. But ultimately, most people are kind of expecting one of those 3 to be there to do it.
Yeah, I did write down safety. I know that I am lower on Taylor Rapp than a lot of Bills fans, which is probably going to trigger some people. I think he's super fun and a highlight reel waiting to happen with his instincts and the hits and some of the ball skills. But I just really worry that he's someone that is going to get exploited against a high-end passing game as a deep safety. Like, if you can get him in on dime packages and have him just lurk and kind of do what the Rams did with him in his prime, totally fine with that. But yeah, there's some really fun safeties at the top of this draft, whether it's Kevin Winston or Watts, obviously Starks. Like, I don't think it's impossible that Starks is there in the first round.
I'm a little worried. Possible. Like, I don't know that I want the first round investment at safety with, again, I don't love having Rapp and Cole Bishop and DeMar Hamlin back and adding, Derrick Forrest, but like, that's a perfectly fine, like, it's a survivable room with what we've seen for McDermott and the scheme and what they coach up. Like, that's okay. I would like an upgrade, but like, there's just, like we talked about, the tiers and the drop-offs at cornerback and D tackle, that if they're not somewhere in those first 3, I get real nervous real fast. And if, like, Starks is awesome, so if Starks comes in and gives you that luxury to work around those things, that's a great upgrade, and I won't be upset. But now 56 and 62 have to be D tackle and corner. And if that wave of the 4 corners are gone and you get past like Tyleik Williams, like once it falls past there, now the impact guys, now all of a sudden you might be like reaching for a guy or forcing a pick. And I just get really nervous if one of those 2, like, I don't have to have it in the exact order, but I'd really like one of those 3 impact positions at the first pick, because it loosens up so much the rest of the way that, okay, we got that one checked off, we're in good shape, now let the rest fall to it. We got, a whole lot of ammo to move around. But if we go outside of there, and that's going to be the hard part, is if a Starks or a Golden make it, there's that's a run to the podium pick. Like, it's an awesome option to have, and it's just going to make me uncomfortably nervous the rest of the draft of what we didn't get.
I do think to comfort your fears a little bit, Starks would be so good in that system with the kind of split zone, split safety style defense, that it's like, okay, I think back to kind of when this defense was at its best with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Like, there's a lot of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in Starks's game. So it's like getting that level piece. I think once he starts playing, you'll be like, all right, yeah, he is taking away like in breaking routes and making plays on the ball that we're not getting on the back end. So like it would, I think it would fit for that specific player, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's a great problem to have. If you have a great player like that falls, that's a wonderful problem to deal with. You figure out the other pieces. And again, maybe that now, having I hate to say it, but having a Dane Jackson, Trey White floor at the other side from Benford, when you're bringing in a guy who would be an upgrade at safety, and maybe you do see a step forward from Cole Bishop, and Taylor Rapp becomes that like dime linebacker weapon, that extra overhang guy opposite Taron Johnson to use kind of in the box, just to be roaming in those spots where you use it as a third safety in that nickel. And we saw the Bills play around with like 3-2-6 stuff, where it was like that they would use 3D linemen and still 2 linebackers, where you keep Milano and Bernard on the field and have Taron Johnson and a safety, like just really versatile pieces. Having that safety net back there of Starks allows for so much of that, where Benford could be more aggressive and you can have a little extra help over the top for a White or a Jackson to survive it.
Well, and not to hang on it, but also like, are we worried about oh my gosh, total brain Taron Jackson? Are we worried about durability at any point? Because I mean, Starks could dominate that role too if you needed a backup slot.
I've been kind of quiet about it, but especially in our Cover One Discord and our premium members, I've talked about the fact that, like, I still love him. I'm very happy. I'm not looking to get out of the contract early. I'm very comfortable with it, but we got to be honest, like, Taron Johnson's going to like turn 30 or turn 29 here before the season starts. So we at minimum have to start planning in the same way that we're now openly discussing and planning a post Matt Milano world. We know that, like, hey, whether this is the last season or maybe you squeeze out one more after this, but we already have to be ready in the relatively near future. And Dorian Williams is right now is that guy, but we'll talk about it here. Like, a linebacker would be a not shocking pick to be ready for that. I'm a little bit further away from that from Taron Johnson, but there probably isn't another contract coming after this. Like, this is probably that stretch. And we've seen, some of the things, like the reasons we love him, in that even at his size, 5'11", 190, he still throws his body around like crazy and goes and will, hit Derrick Henry in full force. Well, that's kind of why some of the bones break and some of the concussions happen. Like, it's tough when you're playing, nickel corner like a linebacker. So yeah, like I don't think it's urgent. I don't think it's immediate, but we have played multiple years literally without a backup nickel, because like, well, we have Taron. Like, Taron's awesome. We're gonna be fine. We now at minimum need to have a backup nickel and need to start thinking of who that guy could be in the future. So again, whether it's a corner who has that versatility, one of the, new safety weapon things that, could be a safety, but could also be kind of a new age nickel. I do think there's some value there, where maybe the year 1 position isn't the same as the year 3 position, but you have that tool in the tool belt.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Any other positions that you kind of had as a sneaky need for the Bills?
The only other thought I had was like a fun day 3 running back, just to like leverage against James Cook in the contract negotiations. One player that I literally have like a best case scenario James Cook comp on, that I think might be there 4th, 5th round, is Trevor Etienne. Same idea. Other NFL backs brother, played at Georgia, scat back roles, super explosive. Just a thought, just to kind of push that up a little bit.
So there's I think it was Kevin Massar, who used to be with Cover One, now does some work at another place, but still, very friendly with us. He was talking about, is there a team that thinks they're going to have a shot at Genty or Hampton that calls the Bills Friday of day 2, and is like, oh, we didn't get our guy. And I love James Cook. I'm very happy with him. My preference is he plays out this year, and then we wish him all the best when he goes to sign with the Raiders, whoever he signs with next year. But if you told, with the depth of this running back class, if you told me you can get, and I've played around a lot looking at like historical drafts and different spots, I think if you could tell me you could get like the Cowboys pick at 75 or the Broncos pick at 86, or like one of those, I think is me not being a homer of like some crazy value, but like probably a little favorable. Like I don't want to move him for like a 5th rounder or something like that. His value of just being good for the team for one more year, I don't need that. But if you told me I could get one of those where you can either afford to use 56 or 62 now on Henderson or Judkins or one of the top guys, or whatever it is, whether it's a guy, you mentioned Etienne, or I could see when you have Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, all of a sudden like a Jaden Blue or a Bashal Tootin like could make sense, because they could that kind of piece when you have those other 2 guys. I can get my head around that. Again, my preference is he just plays great for the Bills, and that you can't extend everybody, but we just handed out 5 extensions and probably have another one coming for Connor McGovern. Like, we're doing fine in retaining everything. You can't pay everybody. If we got to let somebody walk and wish him the best, I'm okay with that. But there is a window I could see where I don't see them carrying 4 running backs next year. And I know they have Ray Davis. They just re-signed Ty Johnson for this year and next year. I don't think they draft a meaningful pick. Like, again, we have 10 picks, so a 5th or 6th rounder is not even a roster guarantee for the Bills. So a later pick, I won't freak out. I don't think we see a meaningful pick there unless they're not sure. Either they're worried about a holdout and they're worried they may have to trade him in camp, or that they literally already have something worked out and we hear some combination on Friday morning or Saturday morning of the draft that all of a sudden that's the deal.
Yeah, totally. Those are the 4 positions I had. I think generally just defense. Best player available. Just keep going down the board.
So much of the offensive advancement is banked on the last 2 first-round picks. Like, they're still in the position where, like, hey, we now want to see. Last year you had injuries, you had flashes, and then playing through injuries with not as much production for both Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman. They have so much invested there. They're like, they have to see that. If you can't all of a sudden drop something over top of it that now you don't find out, like, hey, are they what we drafted them to be? And luckily they're in a position where, with Dawson Knox, with Shakir and Palmer and Samuel, there's enough around there, and that Josh Allen's going to make anybody look pretty good, that they can find that out with the draft. But I agree that I don't see them. I think a lot of fans think they're going to make some big one. And again, if some awesome play of Golden's there at 30, sure. Yeah. But beyond there, I don't see them including that. Your same take on running back. I could totally see, hey, the best player available at 132 is Kyle Williams. Like, sure, that's awesome. Okay, rock and roll. Go add another nice weapon that you don't need anything more than, oh, maybe he pushes Curtis Samuel for that wide receiver 4 spot, but you don't need them. And I don't see anybody else coming in and sliding into the top and pushing those guys down.
I would love a dart throw on one of those deep threats. That might be like if Bond falls because of the off field, like, roll the dice there, or the
Tennessee the guy? Yes, that was who I was just going to bring up.
Thornton.
So there's been a lot of connections there and visits and different. The same idea with the wide receiver coach going out to see him, and that like size speed combo of also no requirement for him to play a ton right off the bat. Like, he could just be like a 15 snaps a game, like, hey, run real fast that way and see if Josh can outthrow you. Like, do that a couple times to keep a defense off honest.
Totally. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes like 3rd round though, just because there's so many teams that think exactly like that. And they're like, well, ideally we would have spent a 4th round on him, but if 17 other teams want him in the 4th, we might have to spend a 3rd on him. So,
and 6'5", 4 running a 4.3, somebody's going to take a shot on that.
And it's not like he was bad when he was used. He just wasn't really used and played in such a weird offense. But
everybody I talk to, and again, I don't ever pretend to be a draft guy. I barely can fit in covering the NFL. I can't put in the time to do what so many of you guys do with college ball. But everyone I talk to is like, what do you do with this Tennessee offense? Like, how do you, like, there's just so much regimented into these just quick repeat things over and over and over again. And like, like what they do translates, but it's like 15% of what you need to do in the NFL. And like, how do you assume whether they can do the other 85% or not when you don't ever get to see it? It's just so weird.
It's crazy. It's why Nico Lama Leva or whatever his name is. It's a big reason why he's transferring, because I think he probably got a lot of feedback. Like, we like your traits, but your tape does nothing for us. So go somewhere.
Have you ever taken a snap under center ever? Like,
no.
Even once? Like, do we know if you can?
Yeah, and it's not even the under center stuff. It's just like, these aren't NFL concepts. Like, you literally can't do what they do because the hash marks are so spread out. You can't do what they do in the pros.
That's wild. All right, so let's now put some of this to use. Our friends over here at William Mattar Law Offices, we love everything they do to support us, and one of our favorite segments to do with them is What's Here to Help. So What's Here to Help this week is going to be a fun new mock draft. So we are going to bring them up here. I will play the role of assistant GM, and we will have you making the calls for what it is. We're going to allow them, if they send us a trade that sounds intriguing, we'll pull the trigger on some of those if it sounds fun. I got yelled at last week because there was a trade proposed that we probably should have accepted, but Derrick Harmon is on the board, so I don't care. They can yell at me. I just took Derrick Harmon, but the Raiders offered us 37 and 68 for 60 or for 30. And I probably should have taken that. This is a really good trade. But I took Derrick Harmon.
I can't blame you.
Apologize. I'm not going to apologize. They can't make me apologize for taking Derrick Harmon. All right. So we've got the board here. I'm going to let it roll. I will make my case for who I like, and you will make the call on who we take.
You try to stop it at like the 20 just to see.
So real quick here, no big surprises, although Shooter, I'm going to guess. So give your 30-second pitch. Do we see Shooter Sanders? I'll give you the over-under of pick 15.5.
I think my gut tells me the Saints are going to do it.
That's my wild.
It's just my gut. I would not even think about it if I were them. I think that's a horrible pick, and I will be roasting them on the live stream if that's what they go, because I just think that's just not the way you want to kickstart that rebuild. But my gut tells me Mickey Loomis is going to say, well, we don't have a quarterback this year, and Shadur's our best chance to have a quarterback this year, and just be thinking about winning right now. So my gut tells me I would take higher on that. But if he gets past the Saints,
I think 21's the floor, or someone late leapfrogging the Steelers,
right,
because the Giants or Browns or somebody move up to get ahead of them at 18, 19, 20. But I think it's 9 is the ceiling, I think, now. And I think 21 is the floor. I don't actually think the Steelers would pass on him. I don't think it's a Levis or a Malik Willis, but like, there was an awful lot of talk that Levis was going top 5 and Malik Willis was a top 10 pick, and draft night was painful. And I don't know that that's out of the question for Shooter.
I still think the Steelers might, because if they view him like a Kenny Pickett, they might say, well, we don't, which is kind of the way a lot of people talk about him. I mean, I think he's a little better than Pickett, but I don't think it's crazy to say it's close. They might say, well, all right, if Rodgers is going to play for us, and maybe they have a conversation the next week, like, let's get Rodgers a weapon, and we don't need to stash a low upside quarterback. So I think they might pass on him. Certainly in play for them to take him too, obviously. But
well, heck, with Pickens and DK, can you imagine giving them Loveland or the other Penn State tight end in the throw that in
Warren.
the middle?
Or
giving them Warren or Loveland in there, or
like Amari and Hampton, because they don't have a second round pick to find a star back,
or an offensive lineman to keep Rodgers upright, one of those things.
Yeah.
All right. So even with that, I do think Shooter will be gone before the Bills. So I don't think it's actually all that material for what happens there. no other shocks here. Obviously, plenty of other picks that were kind of slated in that same order, although I'll be shocked if we see Mason Graham go 10th, but hey, you never know.
Yep.
So we'll let this keep going, and I'll do the same thing. Membo, Buka, Williams, Tyler Warren, Barron. We're now at 20. We haven't gone to 20 yet, but you still do have both Grant, Harmon, Nolen, all three there. Barron didn't fall anywhere in there, and from an edge, you do bring Pierce, Ezeiruaku that you had mentioned earlier. So this is the group that I always kind of monitor, and then I'll throw Starks and Eminwari in there just for fun. So that's kind of the group I always monitor as it starts getting closer. We'll let it go a couple more picks. Loveland, Grant goes, Pierce, Nolen. So now you're at a point where, so that actual, exactly what we just saw is what I think would be the possibility on draft day, where you get to 20 and now they start looking like, okay, then now we have 2 4th round picks. You now get to a range where we could probably move up without having to give up one of the seconds. And we could probably move up from 30 to 24 with 109 or 132 to, you know, that kind of range where it's possible. And at the time, all three of Grant, Nolen, and Harmon were all there. I think this is exactly how it would work, is that, 2 out of the 3 go. Do we now try to move up and be able to take Harmon while he's there? I think that is the kind of move that we would see something like that.
Yeah, the wrinkle here is the simulator just had the Bears trade up to 24 with Minnesota. So probably if you're sticking to what's happening here, they would be not moving back after that. But that is a good trade out spot for Minnesota at 24 for just the analysis side of things. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, I think they have the least picks in the draft, I think.
Yeah, they have 4 picks.
Yeah. So that's a very logical one. That 24 would be a target spot to be able to go and do. So Simmons and Nursery, so back-to-back offensive tackles. I love seeing that go before the Chiefs could restock their offensive tackle group. That makes my heart happy. I do think now you're in a range where it is, but still, again, you have a lot of talent making it there. This is a spot where I wouldn't be shocked. Do you think we should try to make an offer for one of these picks, or do you try to roll the dice that Harmon could make it? I think with the Lions and the Commanders there, I'd be shocked if he makes it past those two.
Right. I think it's very tempting to just offer a 4th and 30 and just see if they would take it. Yeah. I wouldn't give a day 2 pick to make this jump.
So let's offer the lower one. Let's see if that's in our favor. It's slightly below market, but still possible, which I think is what we're saying here. Like, hey, we're not married to it, but if they took it, we wouldn't be upset. Yeah. Hey, look at that.
All right. I like it.
So we get a little bit of value in the trade. We get up there, and boom, we get to take Derrick Harmon.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to pause it. So now I go in complete panic mode, and I filter the corner, and all I normally do is you had Amos the highest out of the guys rated for the Bills, so he would be the target here. But I always get super nervous when I see like 2 of those guys go off the board, and would we need to move up from 56 to be able to snag one still of what's there?
Get double aggressive. I would be a big fan of that.
Well, and again,
Amos is there at like 50.
And again, it's the luxury of having 10 picks. In that normally, I think that's bad. I think it's bad process in general. I don't think that's the smartest way to do that. In general, more swings at the bat gives you a chance on the misses that are inevitably going to happen. But even with this, we could have 2 trade ups and walk away with 7 picks in the draft. Like you're not talking about turning yourself into the Vikings where there's 4 picks. You have the chance to be able to go through there. So we now saw Connerly, Booker, Starks, and Rebel. So some guys that are off their burden. Aim. So that's Amos. A tough run right there. You see, and that's what happens is now you see Rebel, Amos, Hairston all go. So now you're at a spot where it's
Morrison is
you do have scoring. You have Thomas and Morris. How do you feel about Ezeiruaku Thomas? You didn't list him in your group before.
I'm very low on Thomas. The speed really worries me for someone in his archetype. For someone that you're drafting him because he was a press man, bump and run player, you don't put a guy that runs 4.6 and press man. You just don't do it. All the guys that ran slower that are in the league are like Kamari Lassiter or Rasul Douglas that play a lot of the off zone stuff. So like you either have to always shade the safety over the top if you're going to put him in a press man situation, or you're hoping that for a stiffer player that doesn't move as great in space, that he's going to show better like anticipation from quarters and all that stuff. It's just a jump for me. I've got him as like a late third, early fourth kind of guy. I'm much lower on him. He didn't make my top 10 for corners in general.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
and that's why, we want to have, diversity in our opinions here. So that's it's interesting to hear. All right, so we're going to go back in here. We're at pick 40, so we're still probably a little higher than we want to wiggle around and move. So now we probably want to make it through another 5, 8, 10 picks if we could get there. And that would be the range where we'd want to be able to get to. So that's a tough spot. Is now you run and it goes Scorton, Williams, Donovan Jackson, Landon Jackson, Ezra Thomas, Benjamin Morris, and that's the risk of being in that space now. So I'm going to let it run through. We'll see what gets to us at the spot here, but that's the risk you run. That's the challenge that you run into of where those picks are. So now cornerback wise, it drops off pretty aggressive. So now we'll probably be looking at Williams or Strong coming up, maybe, for their system, probably a reach, but players we know we can get here at probably 109 or in the pick we have there. Still some guys.
Can we take a look at?
Oh,
I know taking safety scares you, but
no, Xavier Watts, that's an exciting player.
And I will say, I think Kevin Winston's probably gone in reality, but if he's there, that would be a really fun pick. Have you gotten familiar with him at all? Or
yeah, and his is a weird one because he's got one of the largest ranges of rankings of any of the players I've seen. I have him and Kyle Williams are the receiver. Kyle Williams and Kevin Winston are the two guys where like some people have him as like a locked in second round pick. I think the consensus board has him at like 80, Winston Jr. as like 87 behind Makuba.
I think that's very much people just don't watch safeties until a few weeks before the draft. Cause I know like myself, Trevor Sikkema and a couple other people, like we all had the same experience where like we weren't really familiar with his game, to use the kids term. But I will say, I don't think he would have declared if he didn't get pretty strong advice that he's going to go top 50. And I mean, if he didn't go down week 2, you're talking about like a Derwin James type of player. So I think he's going to go. But if he was there because of the injury, I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he's got incredible upside. But I would try to sell you on Xavier Watts too.
I was just going to say, so now you're talking like the prototypical draft debate of lower ceiling, but super high instinct, super high production, but probably more limited ceiling versus more projection, little bit of injury history, not as much production, but freaky talent and traits and upside. Like Watts versus Winston Jr. is just every, draft debate stereotype.
It really is. Yeah. Man, I like that we got Harmon in the first. I think the D-line's in pretty good shape with him, especially because, I mean, I did mention David Walker as well. I would consider him as well. He's probably here. He usually is.
I think they have him ranked pretty low. They have him at 121. But again, still, it's funny.
Yeah, well, and maybe
I think they literally put the Arkansas logo for Central Arkansas. That makes sense for such a small school. So now are there while we're looking, are there any edge that scream to you? I know some people like Josiah Stewart. I've heard some people with Uman Malin. Any guys here? Braden Swinson's been into the Bills for a visit. Anybody here that is just screaming to you that you have higher than where they're normally available at 60?
This is about my range for Stewart and Emmanuel. I like those guys. I would have no problem taking them. I just personally
the luxury for the Bills, they pick again in 6 picks. So again, not a rush if they're mostly the same tier there, and another one we could look at. So that's the nice spot they're in, is when they get to this. I always get the cornerbacks and the D tackle drop off is anxious, but that's why we got Harmon. We locked in one of those premium spots, and now you could afford to take a stab at a Watts or a Winston Jr., or if somebody falls like a Landon Jackson or one of those other guys.
I would go Watts personally. He'd be.
I'm going to check the wide receiver. Nothing crazy where it was like, oh, we absolutely have to look at that. I think, again, Bond. A lot of people would have higher. Some people really like Jalen Noel. Where were you on him?
Yeah, I'm kind of in consensus. Really good route runner, separator type as a slot, and then better in the vertical game than you would expect for a slot guy. It reminded me a lot of like Jaden Reed out of Michigan State.
Just checking if anybody offered us anything crazy in a trade. There wasn't anything crazy. So I agree. I think Watts is the easy pick there. And again, not to the level of Malaki Starks, but similar in the sense of like a guy who can come in and play day one. Like, Watts is ready to come in and play immediately. He would push Rapp or Bishop for a starting spot and really compete, or give you a really, really high comfort level in the three of them that you're going to have two good answers in what it looks like there. I think from a draft standpoint, I don't think we lost anyone crazy in between the two. Again, I like Alfred Collins and Omar Norman a lot, but we just got Harmon, so I'm comfortable there. Mm-hmm. We did lose Princely, but had the other guys fall. So now going back to available, you do have Birch, Stewart, Swinson, or being able to look at Walker. Oladeja is another guy that the Bills have had in. I think, again, we're probably at that next tier corner and can get our favorite that's still there at 109 with one of the guys that comes there. And overall, nobody crazy that's sticking out here. So I think sticking to your kind of tier group here, who's the favorite edge that stands out to you that would make sense at
definitely
62?
Walker.
Okay,
I know I know it sounds early. I do think he's going to go top 75 or so.
Who was it that I don't know if it was Dane Brugler or it was Dane Jeremiah. Somebody was talking about that. Again, anytime you watch lower tier, FCS level guys, you need to see like dominant film, and that like it was the most dominant film they had. I think they've said it was the most dominant film they had ever seen, because
it's like special.
It was just freaky,
and like, everybody.
I think he even said like, I don't want to put unfair like expectations, but for the size and power and movement at that frame, it gave him flashes of Dwight Freeney. And it was just talking about that kind of power, and that you mentioned Brandon Graham and just guys that like played with crazy power at that size. It really is just a compact, a power pack in that frame.
Yeah. I mean, he's clear cut best edge for me at that spot. So I love it.
I like it. All right. So right now, as we let this roll to pick 109, we are at Derrick Harmon, Xavier Watts, David Walker. I love it. I like the setup so far. Now we are getting a little bit nervous because we gave up 132 to be able to get us into that space. So I don't want to make any other moves here, hoping that one of the corners make it to us here that we really like. That gives us some flexibility. And then we'll actually probably look, maybe even, this is a spot where I would love to even double dip, to be able to go and say that, hey, we didn't get Amos, we didn't get Rebel, we didn't get Morrison, but what if we walked away with both Dorian Strong and Noel Williams? And you had a chance to say, hey, all right, we don't know who the answer is, but we're just going to throw Noel Williams, Dorian Strong, Dane Jackson, and Trey White into a room and say, hey, one of you guys walk out of here as a starter, and we'll figure it out of where that is. Because 1 year, Band-Aid wise, Jackson and White aren't anything long-term, but the same idea, again, a little more extreme with Elam and Benford, but taking two stabs at it and having one guy that comes out of it, you give yourself a chance there. And again, with after this pick, another 5 picks coming up, that's an easier way to move up and take another stab to be able to get a guy. So who do you have higher out of Strong and Williams if we need to take one here?
Definitely Strong.
Okay.
Yes, like I said, Strong cracked my top 10. I have a true third on him, so I think he's like a perfect like break glass in case of emergency. If you don't go corner earlier, I think he would definitely compete right out the gate with Williams and Jackson. And then Noel Williams is just a tick behind him. So
Nice.
Nice. I like that strategy quite a bit.
So I'm going to make the move here for Strong. And then what we'll do is I'm going to pause it quick. Oh, that's so
Oh
frustrating.
no, he's gone.
But that's how those things can happen. A guy that was ranked significantly lower, but you had the need earlier here, goes immediately after. I was hoping we could make it a little bit further down the board, but again, this is exactly what happens at draft time. You have guys that you hope that you can kind of game the system and wait on them, and the reality is you can have things like that move very quickly into those spots. So let's see. So I'm going to pause it here. We're still within range right now. This could be a move up. Was there anyone else at corner that you had? I know I've heard Bilal Cohn as a name thrown around there that some people like. Anyone else that Longer Beam is a guy that came in for a workout with the Bills. Anyone else that you think is someone worth monitoring here in that next lower tier? Or is that kind of what you were talking about with the drop off?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a drop off. To be fair, Cohn is like the first guy on my watch list that I haven't gotten to. I definitely want to watch him before the draft. So I would be willing to take the consensus leap of faith on that. But I would also be interested maybe to see if like Thornton or one of those, like we talked about there.
There we go. One of the top guys available here is
Lane's
one of the
interesting
last
too
remaining.
as a deep threat.
Yeah.
Either of those guys would be really fun. I haven't finalized my grade on Lane, but I think I might even end up with him. That's another guy that ran 4.34, a little bit better production with worse quarterback play. So either that or Thornton would be a ton of fun.
Okay. So let's take this a little bit further. I'll try to keep an eye on.
So Thornton went.
So Thornton went. So now Lane is there. Let's see if we can, now that was kind of what I was trying to filter for. Let's see what it would take to move up here and be able to snag. Let's try one more.
Yeah, I feel like you probably have to go 2 5ths for that. Because it's a 25 pick. So you probably have to give up.
The nice part is the Bills have like 4 5th and 6th round, or 4th and 5th round picks. So there we go. So move up a little bit, be able to snag Lane.
Like it.
All right. So now, just as we kind of recap, I'm going to pause here. We've still got 3 more picks coming up actually pretty soon. We've now hit D-line with both D-tackle and edge, so Derrick Harmon and David Walker. We hit safety. We did have to wait a little bit on corner. So, again, maybe it is an apropos draft with, Trey White getting signed earlier today. We get our hit on a nice outside receiver with the size speed combo for Jalen Lane. And we've still got 3 picks left where now we can really just look and see who makes it at a lower spot. This is an area where we could take a stab at a linebacker, at one of the running backs, maybe one of the guys that you like there. So this is one of 3 upcoming picks. We've got 170 and then just 3 picks later at 173.
Okay.
So let's look at linebacker first, just as a spot here. Anyone here that has stuck out to you? I know Kobe King is a guy I've heard come up multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, Stutzman stands out to me. Really good coverage player, just very inconsistent run defense tape. It is kind of funny because I know Brett Coleman's guy out of Buffalo, Dolak.
Yeah.
He does actually really fit like the types they've drafted.
They have him. They didn't have him in the system a little while ago, and now I'm happy that they have Dolak in the system here.
I have a early day 3 type of grade on Dolak. So cool. He's not going to be for everybody because he's smaller, but he's very Terrell Bernard-y, where like he's just really instinctive, smart dude, finds his way to the ball.
Yeah,
Not
not a
the true
freaky athlete,
driver.
but when you have
Yeah.
good instincts, you get yourself into the spot earlier than having to like catch up and run afterwards.
Yeah.
Um,
But I don't think you have to take him here necessarily. I think you could probably wait.
well, interesting you say that. The Rams offered us 190 and 195 for 170. So that's a spot where you could drop back a little bit and still
Sure.
get him without
Yeah.
really any risk. And that kind of gets us back the pick that we gave up
Mhm.
for moving up there just to take another dart throw.
Mhm.
All right, so let's assume one of those picks we just earmarked for Dolak. That'll make fans listening happy.
Yeah.
How about you said you're still waiting on offensive line. You haven't had a chance to do a lot there yet.
Yeah. I mean,
How
there are
about
a couple. The
either
two
one?
running backs
Oh
did
yeah, there we
stand
go.
out to
There
me
we go.
there.
Okay.
Between I mentioned him earlier in the show, but
Yeah.
Etienne would be a really interesting pick at this point. A lot of potential there. Very inconsistent vision and all that stuff, but a lot of shades of James Cook coming out,
Yeah.
honestly. Also, Brashard Smith is a ton of fun. So those would be insurance plans, to say the
Yeah.
least. And they don't have to play right away. That's kind of why I would lean ETN. But Brashard Smith's got a lot of upside too. He's super elusive, and he switched from wide receiver to running back last year and was really productive. So I still kind of lean towards ETN just because I think he's
Let's roll with it.
insanely explosive. Yeah.
Yeah, and having to get, again, you mentioned like although it's some kind of cliche similarities, like there really is. You have the playing style from Georgia, current pros, younger brother, all those
Mhm.
different pieces there. I almost feel like Stutzman falling this far is just unfair. Like we almost
Yeah.
need to take him. And we still have two more picks after this,
Mhm.
so you could still we'll have a Stutzman versus Dolak competition.
Sure. I like
in
it.
camp.
Yeah.
So let's see any other spot. How about any other tight ends that stood out to you as guy? I know our guy Judge Mathis loves Jalen Conyers as a late dart throw,
Yeah.
but
Um,
um
I'm assuming the Georgia Tech tight end went.
uh yeah, I saw him earlier.
Haas.
Let me make sure.
Yeah, I probably am not considering a tight end out of this group. I think it falls off pretty harsh, personally.
Got wide receiver again. Any other kind of late corners? There's nothing. Longer beam's a guy again that came in for a visit.
Yeah.
Anything I know sometimes with Harmon, the style that we had there, anyone more like traditional one tech, like a Tim Smith or a Zeke Biggers or anything like that would be
Yeah,
more of like
Black.
a okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a big space eater. Early downs only type of guy, but yeah, if you want that role, he would be
Yeah.
definitely that.
Let's throw that in there just for fun. I think that's a fun double dip to do,
Mhm.
to be able to have in a spot like that, and it kind of lets you put that together. And here we get to make everybody happy because
Let's
we
go.
snag Sean Dolan. So honestly, this is a ton of fun. So we end up with Derrick Harmon, Xavier Watts, David Walker, Dorian Strong, Jalen Noel, Trevor Etienne, Danny
Jalen Lane.
Stutzman, Yaya
Just for
Black, Sean Dolak. Beautiful. I
Yeah,
think that turns
I
out
love
really
it.
nice.
A+ draft grade from
Yeah,
me.
obviously. Well, and I think it does show kind of the reality of the situation. So I think they liked a lot of our trades, so they gave us bonus points there. And I don't know, they're the ones who had Derrick Harmon rated higher, so that's a super weird grade for them.
Yeah.
So I do think it does show kind of the reality of it's really hard to hit in both of those spots. So I know a lot of people will try to kind of game the system a little bit in, they'll trade down to pick up some assets to get one of the corners, but then also like trade up for a Tyleek Williams or trade up for one of that next tier of D tackle. And that's great. Like it's fun when you play with it in a simulator. That's hard to like plan for or to execute
Yeah.
on draft night. Like it's not impossible. Like you can trade down and trade back up, but trading down with the first pick Now you already have 10 picks, which you won't use. You're now picking up more assets. You're almost like forcing your hand that now you have to trade up. And sometimes that can be transparent to the teams that you're trying to trade with, where they know that you have to, and now maybe they try to squeeze it for a little bit more from a pick standpoint on what's there. So ultimately, I love the names of who we ended up with. Again, so a lot of the guys you talked about coming in, Harmon being that pipe dream, we didn't have to give up too much to move up there, only gave up our later fourth rounder, still kept the 2 seconds in the early fourth. We get Ezeiruaku who can come in and contribute immediately. Again, you raved about David Walker, and many others have done so as well. Dorian Strong, which was your top kind of aligned guy for the Bills, and then some nice start throws. Jalen Lane, Trevor, Etienne, Stutzman, and Dolak there to be the next wave at linebackers, and giving somebody to kind of mentor under Daquan Jones with Yaya Black to be able to maybe develop into a 2-down guy who could be a run sufferer and just play some rundown snaps for the team. I think that's a nice haul. I'm pretty happy with what we got here.
Me too. I love it.
Beautiful. Well, again, thank you to our friends over at William Mattar Law Offices, helping us out all the time. The call here. Hurt in a car, call William Mattar, 844-444-4444. Call them out. Awesome follows on social media, and a ton of fun to be able to play around with there. Thank you for joining us here tonight, Marcus. This was a ton of fun. I had a blast together here. Let the people know what to watch for you next, and what they can see some of your best stuff over on your channel.
Yeah, so going to be probably like a video a day pretty much leading up to the draft. Positional rankings, going to be doing linebackers, try to get a little Sean Dolak love in for him tomorrow. And then, still got to do offensive line, but sleepers and another mock draft, and then the draft stream over the weekend. So it's a busy time of year, but it's always fun. And thank you so much for having me. It was good time talking some Bills.
Yeah,
they're like my disappointing stepchild as a football team, because I just have such a love-hate relationship with them at times, where as soon as I fade them, they play great, and then I buy back in and they disappoint me. And it's just like, I should just avoid having strong opinions on the Bills, because it only ends up hurting Bills fans in the end.
Hey, so please pick against them this entire year. It will make our lives easier, and we'll just hope. And then you're welcome back afterwards, after we wrap it up and finally get one, just one. I'm fine being the Drew Brees or the Peyton Mannings to Tom Brady. Like, I don't need as many, but just give me the one. I just need one. Just one, and then everything in life's easier. I'll be good. All right, man. Thank you so much again. Make sure you guys check it out. Marcus's work is fantastic. That franchise guy, great channel, great content. As he said, daily videos coming up all the way to the draft. Make sure you go over and check them out. But on behalf of everybody here at Cover One, make sure you come over and check out all of our work. Awesome producer Chris Kepner, my normal partner, Crime Aaron Quinn. But on behalf of Marcus Whitman, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we